Hello, everyone, once again. This is Rob, and welcome back to Media Awareness and a review and overview of The Wheel of Time Season 1. Season 2 just premiered on Amazon Prime this past Friday. Today is Labor Day, and I figured I would put this video out there to give you my personal opinions and my take on season one, and I will be covering season two as it airs. So I have some catching up to do. As the first three episodes did air on Friday, I watched them over the past several days a few times, so I have them fresh in my mind. I'll be doing that video very soon, but I wanted to cover season one, given that I sort of restarted my channel after season one had already aired and had been uh, essentially out for about a year or so. So here I am covering a 2 year old show, but I feel it's worth doing so. With that being said, I just want to remind you all that the fundraiser continues. For those of you unaware, I am a disabled individual and I use a motorized wheelchair slash scooter all day, every day for my independence. And although many of these significant goals have been met in terms of sustaining my health and safety and overall well being, there are a lot of goals that still need to be met and a long way to go before reaching the main goal of the fundraiser. And there is a power cable that runs from the front of my scooter to the back underneath, and when that goes, I am stuck either in place or the scooter drives by itself. And I'm not even exaggerating. It's like the poltergeist takes control over the scooter and just decides to drive me wherever it wants to, which is not cool at all. So I'm asking all of you to contribute $10 to the Spot Fund account linked below this video. If you can do more, that's great, and I really appreciate it. But I'm only asking for $10 a person, and if you can do that, it does all add up over time, and it would mean the world to me. So thank you in advance, and thank you to those who've already contributed. Your contributions mean the world to me, and you're all wonderful people. I love you all, and thank you for watching my videos. So, like I said, this is a review of season one of The Wheel of Time, which I just happen to have here on Blu-ray. Questionable as to whether or not this is a legal bootleg, legal, a legal copy of this, or a bootleg, I should say. But I have it nonetheless, and I covet this actually because I love the show. Um, so there, that should give you a little intro as to how much I appreciate season one. And with that stated, I'm going to try and make this as brief as possible. I've, I've already done three takes of this, and they were all three were clocking in at over an hour, and I really didn't want to do a two-part video, so I thought I would just try again and see what I could do. Of course, The Wheel of Time is based on Robert Jordan, and of course, it was finished. The series was completed by Brandon Sanderson after Robert Jordan's untimely death, and um, it is a 14 book series that is complete, and there's also a prequel, so technically 15 books. But unlike other series like Game of Thrones on HBO, um, this has a definitive beginning and ending. And when I first heard about The Wheel of Time series, I was so excited, and I had been reading the books for a few years at that point. I had stated how I got into the books in my Wheel of Time Season 2 trailer reaction. You can go there to check that out. Um, but it was purely by accident that I really became a fan of this series, at least of the books. The TV series I was really anticipating, at least the Amazon Prime series, I should say. And going into episode 1 of season 1, there were differences from the source material. Did the differences work? In my opinion, yes. The biggest problem a lot of people had was the change of age of the main characters. And I think that the change of the ages serves the story a lot better, in my opinion. And it basically gives the characters more depth and more life experience without having to show that. And it's something that is sort of a lost art, in my opinion, when it comes to storytelling. You know, when you go back to the days of Star Wars, and when you go from Star Wars to The Empire Strikes Back, there's a few years that passed in between. Characters developed off screen, so we don't necessarily need to see everything, and I like that they just took that, and it also gives you more of immaturity to characters that really need to be mature to handle these situations and these events that they are going to be faced with throughout season 1. Now, The Eye of the World, which is book 1 of The Wheel of Time, which is what season 1 is primarily based on, is a really difficult book to uh, sort of realize in a visual form. And I do want to put that out there because it's there are parts that are very visually um, um, stunning in terms of the descriptive nature of the actual events in the book, but at the same time, there are parts that just are kind of rocky, especially toward the end of Eye of the World. Now, I've heard that the Wheel of Time books 1, 2, and 3 were submitted, well, they were reviewed by Harriet Roberts' wife when she was an editor at Tor, I believe. Please correct me if I'm wrong on this. And she read over what he had written, and I am aware that Robert Jordan's name is not Robert Jordan, that it is a pen name. But she'd read over material, said it was too long. She broke it into more digestible segments, which is how we got books 1, 2, and 3. Now, if I'm incorrect on that, please correct me, but that's what I have learned in my research of the Wheel of Time itself. That being said, The Eye of the World, like I said, has a really difficult ending. Because it's not necessarily a triumphant ending with the book. Um, let's start at the beginning. We have season 1, episode 1. I'm not going to go through episode by episode, but I am going to highlight certain things that other people had issues with. And in particular, the opening scene itself, where you see a gentleman being pursued by the Red Aja, the Red Sisters, and um, he's seemingly with someone else. And once he's cornered, that someone else urges him to use the power. And he talks to the individual, and Leandrin, who's the Red Sister who's there, gets off her horse, walks over to him rather slowly, and this is something people took issue with. And I thought to myself, okay, you have a man that can channel the one power, who is clearly unstable. You want to not run into this situation. You want to be cautious. And I think that Leandrin's approach to this guy was very well paced and very well done. And I think the pacing in the show itself was really well done. A lot of people took issue with the pacing. I think pacing is really well done. And uh, it gives you a sense of who these characters are and the danger or the threat that they pose, or the how warm or how friendly they might be, or whatever. It really does it justice in my opinion. So, well, overlooking all this going on, you have Moraine Sedai and her warrior Lan. And she makes a comment saying he's not the one. And referring to the Dragon Reborn. And she's aware of the fact that the Dragon Reborn, although maybe showing signs of instability and insanity, would be slightly more in control than this guy was. And in addition to that, she happened to be there when the prophecy was spoken. So, and that was 20 years prior. I know that from reading the prequel. Now, obviously, somebody who's not read the books and not read the prequel would not know that. But Moraine does know that, so that made sense to me. Her next stop is then the Two Rivers, where we get to meet the rest of our main characters, which, of course, Randolph Thor, the main character of all main characters, and his friends Mat and Perrin, and Egwene, and Nynaeve. Those are sort of the main bunch that are essential to the story and the plotline. You do meet Padan Thane at that point, and they are celebrating Beltane, which comes once a year at the beginning of May, um, right at the very cusp of spring itself. And Beltane is an actual holiday, for those of you wondering. And it's very well presented in this, in my opinion. And I like the way that that's done, and the celebration of Beltane and Moraine and Lan are there by that point in time, and they are observing, and the town is overrun by Trollocs, and Moraine is wounded and needs to heal, but there's not time. So they have to keep moving because they have to get to the White Tower of Tehran to make the Armoran Seat aware that they have found the what she believes to be the dragon, but she's not sure which person it is of this bunch of individuals. Now, one change from the books to the series is that in the books it is clearly stated that the dragon is male and of a certain age, and in the series it is the um, the individual could be male or female. They don't know. And you have these individuals who are very tightly bound together, and Maureen is trying her best to figure out who's who and who is the one she should be focusing on. So it's an adventure, it's a fantasy adventure, and it really does a good job of sort of translating the written word, in my humble opinion, into a visual medium. Now, where the show suffers are just minor areas until the end of season one. And this could not be helped, unfortunately. And this actually kind of tainted the beginning of season two from what I can gather so far. However, I do feel that season two is trying to gradually put things back on track. What do I mean by that? Well, for those of you unaware, uh, Barney Harris, who played Matt Coffin, one of Rand and Perrin's friends, uh, basically withdrew from public life following his filming of season one. And they weren't quite done with the filming, and COVID hit. And they needed to finish off the filming of season one. So there were a lot of last minute rewrites that needed to be done. And that being said, I think they really did a fine job of tying up loose ends at the very end without Matt's character being necessarily involved in that process. Things I don't agree with are uh, women that can channel the one power being able to resurrect the dead, which we do see at the end of season one. And it's out of this anger and sorrow that we see this happen. And it's the second time in season one that we see this happen. We see an outburst of this anger and frustration from Nynaeve that brings back, or that heals, I should say, uh, uh, Lan, Moiraine's warrior, and it's a bit unexpected and a bit too much to sort of exhibit, in my opinion. She's angry and she's using that power, but has this happened before? Has she expressed things in this way before and been this powerful before? These are things that I ask myself and things that I think about, because if that's the case, she's probably the most powerful Aes Sedai that there is, and she's not even an Aes Sedai yet. She has no formal training. You know, she was a wisdom in the Two Rivers, which was their uh, term for someone who can channel the one power, and someone that can heal, and someone that can sense when danger is near, and etc. Um, but the fact that it happens a few times in season one is and was slightly disconcerting. I want to say it happens 3 times, because there is a point in the ways where they're traveling between one destination and another, that Nynaeve sort of exhibits this ability to really put forth that power. And I think that in that particular case, it was not a bad decision to have. But at the end, when she resurrects the dead, that's when I have problems with that. Um, that being said, obviously she's headed to the White Tower to learn how to control her power, and once there, the sisters should whip her into shape, theoretically, and that is the hope at the end of season one. Because of the departure of Barney Harris as Matt, they did recast Matt. I do feel, from having watched the first three episodes of season two, that the replacement for Matt, for Barney Harris, is a really good choice. He does manage to pull off the character of Matt very well, and it is a different Matt, having been exposed to the dagger of Shadow Logarth, a dagger that is really tainted with evil and really takes a toll on Matt himself. So we're not really seeing the same Matt that we knew. So the change in casting sort of does make sense. And it does help the story as opposed to hinder it. Uh, that being said, Rand and Moraine head into the Blight to go to the Eye of the World to defeat the Dark One, in theory. And it backfires, and they end up not defeating him, but setting free one of his most powerful lieutenants. And um, that is really where season one ends off. Now, I skipped over a lot. I didn't want to linger on a lot. Like I said, this is the third time I've been doing this video. I'm watching my clock very carefully here, so that way this is brief. But a lot of people I've talked to who are fans of the books that have watched season one did not like it. There are others I've talked to who have really enjoyed it and view it as a good adaptation with some creative liberties, but a good adaptation nonetheless. So, should you watch The Wheel of Time? Well, I'm holding season one on Blu-ray in my hand. This is actually a slipcover from the questionable bootleg I have. That's how nicely this was packaged. And it was actually shrink wrapped as well. Um, I think that season one is fantastic, and if you can overlook a lot of the creative liberties, so to speak, and a lot of these inconsistencies in terms of certain plots and certain abilities people have, then you're on the right track. There, there's a lot of potential for things to come together, and from what I can see, they are trying to put people on the right path to sort of intersect together in season two and put things um, back on track, if that makes sense. Because there's a lot that kind of got derailed at the end, and I don't like to necessarily uh, give leeway to a series due to the pandemic, and I don't like to give leeway because of an actor departing. But when you have a key actor departing and a pandemic occurring, uh, there are rewrites that are going to need to happen, and they are going to have to, just, make up for the loss of time and the loss of a specific actor who was significant to the storyline itself. In my opinion, You can argue with that in the comments if you like, but that's how I feel about this. So I hope you appreciated this overview and somewhat of a review of season one. I do recommend season one of The Wheel of Time on Amazon Prime, and it is really um, easy to find right now on Blu-ray as well. If you're like me and you want to have it for your collection alongside your Wheel of Time stuff, or if you do not have Amazon Prime, you can easily obtain this for a very affordable price on eBay or on Amazon Prime for that matter. On the Amazon on the secondhand marketplace. I've seen it on there. I will caution you though. Make sure that what you are buying is marked as region free. This Blu-ray is region free, and there is a common misconception that Blu-rays are not region specific. Now, what do I mean by region specific? Blu-rays and DVDs are marked for the areas in which they are to be viewed in. And we are region 1, the US and Canada, for DVD. Region A for Blu-ray. Um, and if it does not say region free or region A, you will not be able to view this in a standard Blu-ray player. You will need to buy a region free player itself. But it is widely available as a region free import bootleg. All you must do when you do stick this in and when the menu pops up is select the setup, and you can deactivate the um, foreign subtitles very easily. So that's all you need to do with this. So if that's your choice, you can do that. If not, you can watch on Amazon Prime, assuming you have Prime to watch. And I highly recommend Prime for its wide array of great originals as well as other content. So once again, The Wheel of Time Season 1 on Amazon Prime. I highly recommend this series. If you are a fan of the books and if you are an open-minded fan of the books, I think you'll love this. If you are a strictly, I want to see the books adapted verbatim, you're not going to necessarily like this. Because it is not verbatim. There are creative liberties that are taken, and there are necessity. There, there are necessary liberties that were taken to make this happen. So keep that in mind as well. This is Rob with Media Awareness. Once again, reminder, the fundraiser continues, and I still need your help with my scooter, so please donate $10 today and make it go a long way. I will see you all soon. Have a wonderful morning, noon, or night, wherever you are, and remember, the wheel weaves as the wheel wills.